Live from the Xfinity Studios at WVON. We're your original social media. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective with Linal Harris on 1690, The Talk of Chicago. Good morning, Chicago. You're listening to Inspirational Perspective. I'm your host, Linal Harris, your very own life coach right here on WVON 1690 AM, The Talk of Chicago. Inspirational Perspective on your radio is all about murdering mediocrity and living the best life possible. So as I ask you every Sunday morning, are you living the best life possible? And this is the place to be to explore that possibility. And what I want to talk about today is how we're being manipulated. Another way to say it is how you're being manipulated. Now, Let me start with this. I'm just going to take my time today. And I want to start with this. The purpose of today's topic is not to make you paranoid. The purpose of today's topic is to help all of us slow down. And really, more than anything, promote a new level of self-education and decision-making. Because I want us to begin to pause and ask ourselves, why do we do the things that we do? Why are some of the things that we do considered normal? And why are some of these quote unquote normal things that we really should be questioning and maybe even consider abandoning? I got to tell you that what I feel more than anything when I came back to the States is the tangible frequency shift that has occurred here. And all it took was leaving and going somewhere else to experience this. And so I really want to get under this morning as best as I can. And I think the best way to start that is I share parts of our current reality, but I want to talk a little bit about the United States of America, because I think we get lost in what this country is and who this country is in a way that I've been noticing more than ever before. And when I say we, I'm ultimately talking about my community, African Americans, because as disenfranchised as many of us say we are, I don't think we really understand why we're disenfranchised. Again, we're being manipulated, and we don't even know. Now, let me just pause here, because if you're like me and you know that someone is trying to manipulate you, you know, that makes me angry. I don't like to be manipulated. I don't even like for somebody to try to manipulate me. It makes me angry. It makes me, in some ways, wonder, like, what about me makes you think that you can run your agenda over here? Like, you know, do you think I'm stupid? It's kind of what goes through my mind. And so I know that today's title and its topic is going to be a trigger point. And hopefully you allow this trigger point to really let you listen carefully to what I want to share with you and the conversation that I'm looking to have. But I want us to consider these United States real quick and the current reality of the United States of America. We lead the world in economic prowess and GDP. GDP means gross domestic product. We lead the world, check this out, in military strength. In fact, our military budget here in the United States is almost the total of the entire world's military budget put together. Just be with that for a second. And I know already, if you're like me, your mind is going to all the things that this country and people in this country need. And here we are spending all of this money on defense, as much money on defense as every other country in the world combined. We lead the world in space exploration. That's a thing. Billions of dollars go into space exploration. We lead the world in aviation. We also lead the world in arms exports. So we produce the most weapons and we export and sell the most weapons. Mind you, we went into a country not too long ago because they had weapons of mass destruction. And only we can produce and make those type of weapons. Man, we lead the world in medical research. Let me say that again. We lead the world in medical research, yet we also led the world in COVID-19 deaths. You're being manipulated. I got more. We lead the world in beef production. That's why y'all eat so much of it, because you got to go somewhere, okay? We lead the world in media consumption. So here's the thing, like we lead the world in media consumption, so you would think that we are the most informed people on the planet. I chuckle when I say that. Because, in fact, we are, in some ways, the most misinformed, and we know the least about the world. Just having a conversation with someone. And here's another conversation. We were debating the location of Libya. And I'm like, Libya is kind of how you get to Europe. You know, you got the Mediterranean Sea, and they're like, no. I'm like, we're the most misinformed. I could have that conversation with anyone else outside of the United States, and they would say, yes, that's right. In fact, Libya's next to Algeria. Most of us have no clue. Most of us have no clue, not because we're uneducated, but because we've been manipulated. You've been, in many ways, informed that knowing this doesn't matter. That's manipulation. Like when fully understanding your world, the layout of your world, the globe that you live on, is not that important to you. We have the best universities. Yet, when you look at overall education, we rank 27th in the world. But we do have the best universities. That's a fact. But again, when you look at overall education, we rank 27th in the world, which tells me that they're not that interested in educating you. We lead the world in oil production. Did you know that? As a matter of fact, we began to outproduce Saudi Arabia some years ago because we started doing this thing called fracking. And many times these things pop on the media. We don't really understand the significance of it. We don't understand why they're debating it, but it matters. But we're not really clear that it matters because we're being manipulated. We also lead the world in nuclear power output. And as dangerous as nuclear power is when it's sustained properly, it's one of the cleanest ways to produce power on the planet. We lead the world in incarcerations. In fact, people that look like you and I make up the majority of the prison population. Yet, we make up a minority of the people who reside or call themselves citizens of these United States. We're being manipulated. We lead the world in medical research, yet we lead the world in obesity. In fact, now there's a new concept out that is called fat shaming, and we're all supposed to be okay. And by the way, I'm not about shame. I want to be very clear. I'm not about shame. However, when we take away the awareness that there is a health issue when we're obese, then we get the level of deaths we had in this past pandemic. So it's okay. And why is it okay? Why is this okay? Well, because we also lead the world in healthcare expense. So it's all right. Hey, look the way you want to look. I just hope you got enough money when you get sick. As a matter of fact, I'll gladly take your hard-earned retirement funds from you and put those in my pocket. You're being manipulated. We lead the world in police violence and shootings. Yet many of you, when I say I'm going to another country, you tell me, Linal, be safe. When in essence, I'm not even safe here at home. We are being manipulated. We lead the world in the number of cosmetic surgeries. We're a people who don't love ourselves. We're a people who don't appreciate the way that God designed us. We're a people that we cannot do enough to be beautiful. In fact, even after we've done too much, people will not admit to us that we are no longer beautiful. You don't have to go far to see someone with plastic lips and plastic nose and plastic foreheads, and everybody walks around them like it's normal. Like this person doesn't look like a clown. Like this person hasn't done something horrible to themselves. We've normalized this behavior because we're all being manipulated. We lead the world in fast food consumption, which is one of the reasons we lead the world in obesity. As a matter of fact, the average American will spend $1,200 a year on fast food, which means some of you all are spending more because I don't buy it. Right? They fit me in the average. I'm on the low end. Some of us are on the high end. Okay? Somebody's spending $2,400 to make up for me, to make up for my wife. We also rank 7th in literacy. So here we are. We have the best universities, but we rank 7th in literacy. Here we are. We, in many ways, have the most money, but it doesn't matter if you can't read. As a matter of fact, there's no real passion. We rank 19th in so-called happiness, and we rank the highest in making new parents who just had a child go back to work. So in many ways, we've been manipulated into becoming a working society. Most of us, our main concern is with paying the bills over and beyond the full development of our children, our legacy. We're being manipulated. We also have the most gun ownership per capita. We also drink the most alcohol. And we also spend the most time watching television. When I saw this, I had to do the math. I couldn't. The number's actually gone up. It used to be 4 hours. Now we spend almost 5 hours. How does a person, like, is this true, you guys? Like, I mean, how does a person spend 5 hours in a day watching television? How is that possible? And forgive me for not understanding. I'm not being facetious. I promise you. I am not being facetious. I'm trying to figure out how someone spends 5 hours watching television and gets anything done. Oh, I get it now. You don't. Now I'm being facetious. You don't get anything done. You don't accomplish goals. You don't actually live out your dreams because you're being manipulated. Because if you're stuck on the couch, not doing what it is that you truly want to do, not living out a dream or not even having a dream, then you're being manipulated. So how are we being manipulated? It starts very early. Starts in the schools. I'm going to break this down. But it starts in the schools. Like many of us, we are in many ways kind of coerced into fully falling back, or in some ways aligning with the authorities that are put in place. And we're going to talk about how this manipulation works, and authority is the number one way. Like having some level of authority. And so it starts in school because the teacher has authority in the classroom. I talk about this often. I remember in social studies when my teacher began to teach history. She had authority. And people that look like you, Linal, were slaves. And so that authority is used to begin manipulating our minds at a young age. And so what do I take away from that? Well, I come from a people who were in many ways ingratiated with freedom. Maybe we don't deserve it. We were given freedom. This is manipulation, man. It's manipulation at its finest. And then we go to church. And this Sunday, many pastors will tell you that it's okay that you don't have much. But what you do have is the Holy Spirit. And they'll make you think that the trade-off of being semi-quasi spiritual allows you to negate the good things in life, and that you can't have both. You're being manipulated. Because tell me why the Creator who created so much abundance wants you to live and struggle. And so if you actually allow yourself to believe that the struggle is holy, you're being manipulated. And many of the preachers believe the struggle is holy because they were manipulated. Again, I'm not throwing any shade. My job is just to share truth. Look at the African American community and our collective health. We are the most unhealthy in the United States of America. And there are many reasons for that. One of it comes from the slave diet that we were manipulated into celebrating, because we actually celebrate this. Next month, Thanksgiving will come, and many of us will go to the store and actually buy pig guts. You'll actually buy it. In slavery, it was given to us as a nasty joke. And now we've been manipulated into believing I'm celebrating my ancestors by eating something that they had no choice in eating. We're being manipulated. You'll actually pay for the bucket, and then you'll go home and you'll begin to clean these pig guts and intestines, and your whole home will smell like feces. And this is normalized. Someone will walk into your home and go, "Whoo, you must be cooking chitlins." When what they should be saying is, "What are you doing? It smells awful in here." But see, that's what manipulation does. It actually normalizes insane behavior. Because I'm sorry, but it's insane to eat a pig's intestines, the most filthy animal on the planet. We have been, in many ways, manipulated into eating the most filthy animals on the planet's intestines. It's not just that, but the other part of it is the struggle, the stress we encounter day in and day out that you're told you have to encounter. You're told that you, in many ways, like, hey, you got to make $1. And so tomorrow morning you'll wake up and spend most of your time in a place that you do not want to be, you do not enjoy, you do not like, around people you do not enjoy, around people you do not like, working for someone that you do not like, and in many ways encountering microaggressions and racism, all because you believe this is what you have to do. By the way, whatever you believe becomes your truth. We've been manipulated. Look at our bank accounts. Many of us, Friday just came, and that was the most money that we'll have. And a lot of it's already gone. Look at our communities. You drive through our communities, broken glass, garbage, vacant lots. And these are the areas that we call home. These are the areas that we defend. These are the areas that we talk about when we say, no. The West Side is the best side. And we actually spend time arguing about which is better, the West or the South, when we know both are broken. Both are broken. And many of us are broken. We are being manipulated. And then most of us still believe that we live in the best country that's available to us, that we're having the best experience, and that we are privileged to live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Even when scared cops shoot their own citizens dead in the streets. How is that brave? How can that be the home of the brave? I'm just saying. Like, these are, I believe, legitimate questions that I don't care who you are and what you look like are difficult to answer. I want to talk about three concepts in particular today. The first is called social engineering. And if you're taking notes, I want you to write down next to social engineering, human hacking. Human hacking. Okay? And by the way, if you're human, then right now I want you to consider that you can be hacked. No different than your computer, no different than your iPad, no different than your network. You can be hacked. And as in fact, many of us already have. You're running the virus software right now. That's why you'll pull into McDonald's this morning and order chicken nuggets without even thinking about it. You've been hacked. You've been hacked. You don't mind eating food that was grown in a test tube that has ingredients that you can't even pronounce, you can't even spell, and when you look them up, it's clear that they will hurt your health. You've been hacked. There's a virus running. See, this is like, and I'm gonna really dive into this. So number one, social engineering. Number two is the Overton window. If you've never heard of this, you want to stay tuned. The Overton window. And then number three is mass media marketing. So what is social engineering and human hacking? What is social engineering and human hacking? So I have some definitions for you. Most people will jump to definition number two because definition number two makes us feel a lot better. So let me start with definition number two because this is what you've been told if you know anything about social engineering. And definition number two says, in the context of information security, it is the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential or personal information that may be used for fraudulent purposes. So most of the time when you hear about this term, social engineering, they're referring to definition number two. What they're not referring to, because I'm not sure they really want me telling you this. It's right in the dictionary, though. But best way to hide something is to put it in a big book. Definition number one is the use of centralized planning in an attempt to manage social change and regulate the future development and behavior of a society. Let me read it again. It is the use of centralized programming. What is centralized programming? We have more of it today than we ever had. Centralized programming, Facebook. Centralized programming, Instagram. Centralized programming, television. Centralized programming, CNN. Centralized programming, MSNBC. Centralized programming, Fox. You get my drift? The use of centralized programming in an attempt to manage social change and regulate the future development and behavior of a society. Regulate the development, because if I can regulate your mental development, then I can regulate your behavior. This is why when we see an Arby's commercial, it's normal. Eating that amount of meat in one sitting is not normal. It's not normal. But we have been socialized, and our mental development has in many ways been manipulated where this is a good thing. This is evidence that I am living richly. This is evidence that I am living well. When in essence, what I'm doing is quickly making myself sick. Social engineering is the art of managing large-scale social change. It's happening right now. This is why I got to talk about it. It is in full force, and it's been going hardcore since the turn of the century. The moment we came into the 21st century, social engineering went to an all-new high. I'm about to break it down for you. Social engineering is the art of managing large-scale social change, and it is the art of manipulating people so that they will give up confidential information, right? So that's definition one, definition two. Now, here's the thing. They're running both on us because right now it has been normalized for people to ask you for your medical information that just 3 years ago was highly confidential. See, because here's the thing. You got to understand that the way it works is, and then we're going to talk about the Overton window, that something that couldn't have been done before can now be done in a crisis. Why can it be done in a crisis? Because everyone panics. And when everyone panics, the blood doesn't flow to the neocortex. And when the blood doesn't flow to the neocortex, we're willing to engage in things that don't make logical sense because we're stuck with the amygdala. The amygdala is what happens when we're in a panic. And many of us, since 2020, we've been in a state of panic. And so when they say this is a good thing, we go, good, do it, hurry, do it. Take my rights, take my sovereign ability to make choices for myself because I just want to feel safe. Because they understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs better than we do. And they understand that as long as they can create lots of fear, they can manipulate you into doing almost anything and agreeing with almost anything. So right now, here in these United States, whether you wear a mask or not, there are certain cities that, based on your medical information, which is asked at a restaurant, folks, this is preposterous. Like somebody's got to say it. You may not be able to eat. Guess which group of people are largely unvaccinated? You're being manipulated. We should be fully aware, right? I just want us to be fully aware. Part of my work as a coach is to drive awareness, because the more awareness we have, then the more choices we have. And many of us, we don't even realize that we're being robbed of our choices. We're being robbed of our choices. So can you be fooled? I remember years ago, I had an ex-girlfriend. She was very contentious, right? One day, she's arguing with me, and she's like, see, your problem is you don't realize that I'm smarter than you. That's what she said to me. And you know what I said? Okay. Because I knew I was smarter than her, and because I'm smarter than her, doesn't make sense to argue. It's great that you think you're smarter than me. I want you to think that you're smarter than me, because then you won't see me coming. The worst thing you can think is that you cannot be fooled. That's the worst thing that you can think, because when I know I can be fooled, then I'm actually looking for the trick.
Do you think we're being manipulated into taking the vaccine shot?
You tell me, based on what I said.
Okay.
And here's the thing. Let me. You didn't hear the whole show.
No, I didn't.
Here's the thing about this, right?
Have you been vaccinated?
That's a personal question. That's medical information. That's
Okay,
exactly what I'm saying. You see how easy that is?
I get it.
You see how easy that is? It's like, Linal, do you have an STD?
No, it's not the same thing.
Oh, yes, it is. See, that's the thing. It is the same. And that's what I'm talking about.
Are you a scientist? Are you a medical doctor? I mean,
no.
Okay, you're not. So, I'm not trying to jump on you. I'm just saying, I don't understand why people keep fighting this vaccination thing.
I'm not.
They don't have a medical degree. They're not scientists.
They do. They do. This is not about the vaccination.
They do? What do you mean they do?
They have degrees. They have medical degrees. All the things that you said, they have them. Yes.
And they're fighting against the vaccination people with the medical scientists?
Well, see,
I haven't heard of any.
Jay, let me say this. This is the point of the conversation today. It's so important that we slow down and that we take a very personal look at the decisions that we're making. That we are able to sort through the facts, sort through the information, and listen objectively. I question everything.
And you can use that same, you can look at that across the board with a whole lot of different issues.
That's right.
I'm speaking specifically of the coronavirus.
I get that. And what I'm saying is every person has their own personal responsibility to make a decision. My question is, how are you making it? Are you making it because you've been manipulated, or are you making it because you've been self-educated? That's it.
Okay. Once again, you can take that and you can use it across a whole lot of different subjects.
That's the idea, to use it across every subject that we can as a people. Because here's the thing, that's smart. That's smart. But I'm talking specifically of coronavirus. I don't think that should be discouraged. Taking that vaccination, I don't think that should be discouraged because we got scientists saying that, this thing works and is helping us. And Jay, guess what?
Guess
what? We also have scientists saying that it doesn't. We also have scientists saying that we move too quickly.
And I haven't heard that. But I have watched on television where people were hooked up to tubes and in hospital beds. They got all types of things on their bodies. Mm-hmm. And then one guy, I think he was like 49 years old, 48, 49. And he did a video before he died because he was against getting that vaccination.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Jay. Let me ask you this.
Let
me ask you this. What does that incite, watching that on the screen? What emotion does that bring up for you?
First of all, it makes me think that I need to start listening to people that are scientists.
No, I asked you, what emotion does it bring up for you when you see that on the screen?
Less of an emotion. I'm going to say it makes me realize because I'm not a doctor or a scientist, I need to listen to the doctors.
Okay. But I'll
admit, I was against getting that shot.
That's an emotional response. I'm asking, what's the emotion? Like, can you identify the range of emotions that you go through, that you went through when you see these things on the screen?
When I see that, I think you're looking for me to say fear, but
I'm just asking you. I'm asking you, what was your emotional experience? See, here's the thing, Jay.
No, it's more of an intellectual.
And this is...
It's more of an intellectual experience than emotion. I had to think to myself, okay, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. Maybe I need to listen to the professionals.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this then.
So it wasn't so much emotion as much as it was just intellectual.
So let me ask you this. Is there a even display in the media regarding what happens when a person comes down with this virus? Is there an even display? Meaning, we're shown people who are dying, but are we shown people who recover?
But that's the other thing. Even when people recover, they say they're still sick. You know, you got people that can hardly walk. They still can't breathe.
I'm asking a question here, Jay.
Okay.
Are we shown both sides?
When people recover, maybe I'm not understanding your question.
We're shown when people are sick and they die, we hear the story. We hear the worst stories. But I have yet to turn on the television and hear of a great recovery.
You have yet to hear of a great recovery?
Yeah, I hear personal
doesn't that
stories.
add to my argument? There's no great recovery.
My point.
I was just saying that I think the institution taking over the family and children listening to TVs and things for advice is bad. I think that's where a lot of the manipulation is happening. And we can't rely on technology either and invention because it doesn't always have the right answers.
Agreed. I wholly agree with you. Yep. Thanks for the call.
That's pretty much what I was going to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What Anita just shared is exactly how I define social engineering, right? And if we go back to the definition that I shared, the use of centralized planning in an attempt to manage social change and regulate the future development and behavior of a society. So I'm going to put it like this. This is what I mean, going back to even Jay's phone call. Just because they tell me how to make my child's lunch doesn't mean I should believe it. That's the way to make my child's lunch. I should be saying, that's one way. Is it the best way, right, for my child? Then I should say, well, I don't know how to make my child's lunch. That was a good program. Let me research the best nutrition to put into my child. This is what I'm saying, you all. But what most of us do, we'll watch it. We'll say, oh, a hamburger with cheese and milk and fries is a good lunch. Okay. And then we'll pass it right to our child doing no research whatsoever because they said it on TV. That's what I mean about waking up. This is where we go to the spiritual aspect of things. See, Jay asked me a question about what I did and what I researched, right? But here's the other piece. I also pray. And we've lost that. We look to other human beings to save us. They don't know. They have no idea. They don't know the future. They don't know what's coming. The only person that can save me is my creator. And so when I'm overwhelmed, brother, when I realize that the scientists can't tell me, they don't know. The media can't tell me, they don't know. The scientists are arguing with one another. There's infighting. The government says this and others say that. I get on my knees and I get my instruction and my education there. That's the answer. That's the best answer.
Yes, I can't argue with that, and I respect that totally. You know, but when you telling people to do their research, okay, that's one thing. When you go into your knees and talking to God, that's a different thing.
Because you know what? He will lead you. He will lead you to the right. Man, let me tell you something. See, this is the thing. We put shackles on God. The research.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So now you backed yourself over to God, and you've taken away the research because I wanted to. I didn't
say take away the research. I didn't say it's a both and.
So out of your research, and I'm only asking this for the sake of helping people that's listening. Out of what you researched on your own, can you provide information that made you think that the shot you shouldn't take it, or where's the information that you read?
I never said you shouldn't take it. I never said you shouldn't take it. I never said you should. You're not going to hear me say that either way.
Okay.
And you know why? Because I believe it's an incredibly personal decision.
Yes.
I believe it's an incredibly personal. Here's the reason why. Let me tell you why. You won't hear me say either, because somebody might say, well, he's a coward. Nope, that's not it. Here's why. I'm 45 years old. I'm in great health. I'm looking at my health. I'm looking at the health of my wife. I'm looking at the health of my child. I'm looking at all these variables when I'm doing my research and when we're making our decisions. Each and every one of us is in a different place. And so it becomes a very personal decision. I cannot tell you, nor will I tell you what I've done, because most of you all aren't living the way I live. You get where I'm going?
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, man, we got to make personal choices. Who's to say what's the right thing to do? One person, this is about the personal relationship we have with the Creator, because I could pray, the Creator tells me to do one thing, someone else can pray, and the Creator tells them to do something else. Why would either of us be in any way criminalized or talked about or made wrong for that decision?
First and foremost, this argument about are you a scientist is nonsensical, because one does not have to be a scientist. We can simply look at the scientific conclusions made regarding COVID. Science says that more than 99.5% of people who have contracted COVID will recover. That's what science says.
That's what science says.
So that's what science says. Mm-hmm. Science says that 99.99% or more of young people who contract COVID will recover. Science says there's nearly 100% recovery rate if you are healthy and you contract COVID. It says that more than 85% of people who have died, more than 90% of people who have died from COVID had underlying pre-existing conditions, comorbidities. That's what science says. Mm-hmm. So one does not have to be a scientist to make a conclusion about their feelings regarding COVID and its danger or not. So, but here's where the manipulation, and here's where the manipulation comes in. Mm-hmm. And I can reconcile, I can't remember his name, 3 callers ago, and your point, Linal, about the manipulation.
Yep.
The manipulation is not a question of whether or not COVID is dangerous. It is for 0.0 or 0.1% of the population.
That's right.
Or 2% or 3%. Right. That's it.
Right.
But here's how you know manipulation exists. When your response to that fear involves 100% of the people, and it's a cost that's greater than what the ailment is. So the cost that's greater than the ailment being COVID, the cost is your personal choice. Mm-hmm. The cost is your liberty. Do you understand that we fought wars over liberty, that America was founded based upon some fundamental liberties that we're willing to give up and forsake as a result of a fear that's contained in less than 1% of the population?
This is what I'm talking about right here.
That's the manipulation is not whether or not COVID is dangerous. The manipulation is what you're willing to give up. The manipulation is that they're not talking about, like you said, Linal, COVID holistically, in that, listen, what we're talking about right now, only death, mortality, is only an issue for less than 1% of the population. I want you to understand that. Nevertheless, but I want you to give up HIPAA. So that's like you said, do you have HIV? So when we go into a restaurant, do you have HIV?
Right.
Because I don't want to drink from the same cup as you, because I know if you have an open wound, I may contract HIV from drinking after this cup. Was it cleaned enough? So we're giving up our liberty.
We're opening Pandora's box.
You're being manipulated.
That's right. We're opening. And here's the thing. here's the thing, Attorney Fenton. I didn't even want to talk about the vaccination today because that's just one of the manipulations.
Correct.
That's just one.
Correct. And the other manipulation will be in the airport. And now when you have to take off your shoes and then they need you to go through this and go through that. So now slowly all the liberties that we fought for, and we're now giving them back. And here's the manipulation for black people. Mm-hmm. The manipulation is that we think the Democrats are our friend. We think parties are our friends. We think this state is our friend. But none of them are our friend.
It's a trick.
It's a trick. So you turn to CNN, they're going to tell you how dangerous COVID is. They're also going to say, well, if you don't vote for Trump, if you vote for Trump, the world's going to end. And I'm only using these two things as an example because they coexist. It's constant manipulation about it's doom or gloom if you don't do what they want you to do.
All fear-based.
Understand this. That science is not all scientific in a monopolistic society, in a capitalistic society. They will utilize science as a tool or a weapon against you just the same as they will use color, people.
I promise to tell you all how I can in many ways prove that we're being fooled and that we can be fooled. November 2003, President George Bush visits the Buckingham Palace. Security is incredibly high. Okay? This is right during that time, right after 2001. Terrorists are afoot. Okay? They're running around in so-called turbans. Our Muslim brothers. And for my Muslim brothers, you know I love you. So I'm being facetious right now because that's how they did it. All right. So security is high. And he's there and he's about to spend the evening with the so-called queen. Okay. The so-called queen. Okay. And President Bush and Prime Minister Tony Blair, who also was being tricked. He didn't even know it. That's why he got kicked out of office so quickly, because he was being tricked. He didn't know. But y'all think, we smarter than Prime Minister Tony Blair, who was in the middle of a trick. Okay? So anyway, they're having dinner together. I'll talk about how they tricked him, because later we found out, real quick, let me just say it. Later, we found out that one of the major reasons for going to war with Iraq, you can Google it, reasons for going to war with Iraq is because Saddam Hussein had decided that he was no longer going to use the U.S. dollar to make his financial transactions. He was going to move to the British sterling. That's why Tony Blair got tricked, because they're about to move to your country's currency and you went to war with them. And he didn't know. And when Brits found out, they kicked him out of office. He got tricked. They got tricked. But we don't think we can be tricked. So anyway, let's talk about this trick. So they're all at dinner. These heads of state, these very important people. Security is high all around them. What they didn't know is that 2 months before this wonderful dinner, a gentleman named Ryan Perry forged his resume and applied for the job of palace footman. This man delivers the food. And he was hired. And in the 2 months before President Bush got there were no background checks. So they didn't know he lied. The powerful government got tricked. Now, lucky for them, Mr. Ryan Perry was just a journalist who wanted to talk about how easily he could social engineer his way into a high security situation. Now, this is where this is important, you all. If the United States Central Intelligence Agency and the British Intelligence Agency can be tricked like that, what makes you think that you're untrickable? So let's talk about the Overton window. So Joseph P. Overton introduces this concept in the 1990s. And this whole idea is that the key to shifting anything in the public, if you want to shift anything in the public, in politics in particular, that you have to convince voters that policies that are outside the window of what they would allow should be in the window of what they would allow. And so the only way to be successful in doing that is, and when I say doing that, is passing unthinkable legislation, right? Because let's be clear, in 1998, if they had said, hey, we want access to everything on your electronic devices, we want access to every camera in your home, we want to be able to do that, everyone would have said, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? But post-2001, nobody said a word as they passed the Patriot Act. Why? Because there was a deep fear for terrorists. Before 2001, the term terrorist didn't even mean the same thing. Now today, even the language around the word has changed. Why? Because we were introduced to an Overton window. What couldn't be done in 98 was done in 2002, just 4 years later. Fear is a very natural emotion. But I have to understand what fear is doing to me. Fear will hijack my rational and logical ability. Fear will make me make impulse decisions. And so instead of making impulse decisions, this is when I go to the Creator. Hey, I don't know what's left and right. I don't know what's right and wrong. But I know that you can guide me. And I need you right now to guide me, because I don't know where the true information is. I don't know where the misinformation is. And so I need you to strengthen my spirit, enlighten my spirit, so I can see the trick. The biggest problem we have as a people is that we've abandoned our spiritual nature. There was a time in ancient Kemet where that was the main concept of who it was that we are. The pyramids are dedicated to the spiritual journey of those ancestors. They're still here today because it was that important. But here we are in the 21st century with all our gadgets and gadgets. And we're like, I don't need the Creator. I don't need God. Most of us probably don't even check in on a daily basis. And we're in a war zone. And I don't know about you, but when I'm at war, I'm praying. You can ask any soldier that was in the trenches whether they were praying when they were in those trenches. You talk to a vet, they were praying. But many of us don't even realize that we're in a heinous war. And because we don't realize that, we're not checking in. And the reason we don't realize it is because we're being manipulated. That's the point. Mass media marketing. If I show you something over and over again, you will eventually believe that you like it. And you will eventually begin thinking about it unprompted. Case in point, be out and get hungry. The thing you think about is the thing you've been told to think about. See, where I am right now, man, is we got to get to a point where we have our own personal agenda. When it comes to my health and well-being, I'm running the program. I'm running the marketing. When it comes to my relationship, I'm running the program. I'm running the marketing. When it comes to my family, but because we're operating with so little intention, we're told what to do repeatedly, and we're doing it because we're being manipulated. Mass media marketing is the highest form of manipulation today. If you hear something over and over again, you will eventually like the sound of what you hear. How many of you heard a song for the first time? This happened to me with Drake's new album, Make It Real. Drake's new album, I listened to it the first time. It's garbage. I'm like, this is garbage. How could you even combine it or compare it with Kanye's West Work? This is my thought, right? Then I keep hearing it. I'm too sexy for him. I'm like, man, that's a repeat. He done took that. Then I hear it again. I'm like, he might have did okay with that song. Mass media marketing. The first time I heard it, it was garbage. The 100th time I heard it, not so bad. Now, here's the difference. I know what happened. I know I thought the song was garbage. I'm willing to admit it. But most of us won't even admit it to ourselves. Because we hear it over and over and over again. And eventually you're like, that's hot. That's dope. Hey, man, back in the day before streaming, how do you think hit records were hit records? We've seen it on television. They slide the $100 bill under the record, hand it to the DJ. Man, make this spin. Because the more he made it spin, the more you would buy. It's happening right now. The more they make it spin, the more you're looking to buy. The more you're looking to say yes. The more you're saying it's okay, even when it's not. Before the show ends, I have to lay out the 6 ways that we are being manipulated. Here's number 1. They use an authority figure. Somebody who has a prefix in front of their name. See, I love that Attorney Fenton called in. And because, you heard the guy ask me, are you a doctor? Well, people that won't listen to me, they'll listen to someone with the name attorney in front of it. Oh, well, Attorney Fenton said it. It must be true. No, I think he would tell you, go check and see. I believe he would tell you, do the research. I believe he would tell you that. But we got this thing for authority. And the reason we got this thing for authority is because we've been manipulated by authority since we were in a young age. You listen, you believe. And so they use that same tactic to manipulate you in other ways. Intimidation. You'll be intimidated is number 2. How manipulation works. You ever been in a relationship and someone gives you an ultimatum? That is manipulation at its finest through intimidation. If you don't, I will leave you. All it is manipulation is nothing more than getting you to do something that I want you to do. Okay? Intimidation is number 2. I'm going to tell you something, man. They've done a phenomenal job at intimidating our community. Phenomenal job. Number 3, consensus. Everybody else doing it. That's what everybody else said. Right? Consensus. Number 4, scarcity. And this one hits home for most of us because we live in the enough, not enough context. We're always concerned about whether or not we're going to have enough. So let somebody say, if you don't, you won't have enough, you'll do it. Manipulation. Why do they have to manipulate you? If it's something you should do, why do you need to be manipulated? Why can't I just be told where to go? The brother asked, what should I research? Where should I go? Why can't they just tell me, hey, look it up for yourself? Number 5, familiarity and trust. Because I trust you, then I'll do what you tell me to do. This is why when the brother asks, well, you tell us what you think, I won't do it because I know many of you trust me and I understand the implications of that. Number 6, urgency. Whenever somebody's saying, you get the emails, my dear brother, I am currently trying to get into the United States. However, I must liquidate my account. This is the most urgent matter. In my account right now, I have $10 million. And I need to move this money into your account, if you will allow me, in the next 3 days. Again, my brother, this is of the most urgent matter. Now, that don't work no more, but it used to. Some of y'all will be like, I got 3 days. You got manipulated. We've been getting manipulated from birth. Our community has been getting manipulated from birth. You get into this American society, you're manipulated to believe you're not good enough. You're manipulated to believe you're not smart enough. You're manipulated to believe you're not beautiful enough. Look at the beauty industry for African American women. Man, I'm just going to say it. Some of these wigs y'all put on, sister, you're better off with your own hair. But we've been manipulated into believing this makes me look good when you look like a fool. You've been manipulated. You can tell we're sick. You can tell something's wrong. When one is manipulated, they are being persuaded to do something without knowledge of the intent. What's the intention? So how does social engineering work? Well, with authority, it works with religion. You had pastors throughout the pandemic who had their congregations come together. They're being told on the news, they're being told everywhere, you just do a little research. We did need to quarantine. We need to slow down and figure out what's going on. We did. Now, we getting together. Lots of people in the congregation get COVID. But when they were told to do it, they believed it was the right thing because of authority. I saw an Instagram video. Some pastor had the women and the men laying down, and he had his belt. Y'all seen this yet? He had his belt, man. These are grown people. These are grown people laying down at the altar of the congregation as he walks through and hits different people. Now, we'll look at that and say, that's crazy. But see, it's easy to say it from the outside looking in. You have to understand these people have been manipulated. And more than anything, when I saw the video, I said, Lord, please help me. Because if he can get 50 or so people to lay out like that, who's to say I won't lay out one day? Help me. Help me not to be manipulated. History, our history teachers manipulated us. The Europeans manipulated us. Most of us don't really know our true African history. There's a reason they blew the noses off the Sphinx. There's a reason why many of those ancient Kemet statues, they've tried to scrape the color off the stone. Manipulation. Media personalities become our authorities. They tell us what to think. They tell us what to believe. Because if Don Lemon said it, it must be true. Because Don Lemon's in your living room every evening. You trust him more than you trust your family. And don't let it be somebody with the title. They can tell me what to do, and they can tell me what not to do. See, intimidation works because if you don't, you will die. And see, this is man. I just want us to see it's not just one thing. It was done in 2001. It has been done since then, and it will continue to be done. This is a conversation that goes down. Right? It's, hey, we just need to know, not just today, but tomorrow too. Intimidation is you have no other choice. It's the only thing you can do. Anytime somebody tells you it's the only thing you can do, you got to sit back and wonder, right? And because the only reason it's the only choice you have is because you don't have enough awareness. The more awareness you get, the more choices you have, period. The other thing they do is don't be stupid. That's intimidation too. Somebody, don't be foolish. That's intimidation. Consensus, everybody else is doing. I talked about that, man. Big thing. Check out Edward Bernays. He wrote the book Propaganda. You want to understand how propaganda works? You read the book. He's the father of propaganda. And that's what's being pushed these days. I don't have to go through all these. Let me skip a little bit. I do want to say this around familiarity and trust. I need to hit scarcity too. Because most of us are already being driven by scarcity. We think long and hard about whether or not we'll have enough this week, next week, the months to come, the years to come. And if someone tells us, man, you won't have enough, then what happens is we get nervous. My question is, why not check to be sure? Why not ask about the intent? Why would you tell me I wouldn't have enough when my Creator produces an abundance? See, again, man, this comes down to a both and. Many of us aren't doing the check-in. This is the reason for keeping your spiritual connection. You know, church, they go tell you the do's and don'ts, but the do's and don'ts ain't so much about, the religious doctrine as much as it's about keeping your connection. Familiarity and trust. We watch 5 hours of television a day as a nation. So what that tells me is that whoever I'm watching on television, I probably trust them. They're in my living room more than my family. They're in my living room more than my mama, more than my daddy. And if they tell me to do something, I'm probably going to trust them. Here's the thing, though. Walk up on them at the airport, see how they treat you. This same person you trust. This same person that you give absolute attention to. They might not even acknowledge you. And then ask yourself if you'll trust them then. Whenever you allow someone like that to come into your living room every day, they begin to have the ability to manipulate and control your thinking. Many of us are repeating the people we trust without even knowing why we're repeating what they say. We've been that manipulated. If I can give you anything today, stop blindly believing what you hear. Check the facts. If you can't find the facts, then we get together as a community. Stop letting people push you with urgency around what you should do. Question everything. Like, why would that be a triggering statement? Think about that. At the core of so-called Greek philosophy that was stolen from Kemet, they say, question everything. We're told to question everything, but now when I question, I'm wrong. Now you got to make me really question. Stay curious. Practice staying curious. But more than anything, it's time to pump the brakes and just slow down. See, they got us moving at a breakneck speed for a reason. Most of us don't even have time to do the research. Most of us don't have time to think, so we say, what should I do? And then we do it. No. Turn off the television, press pause, read, research, and start practicing trusting your own conclusions. You're not dumb. You're not stupid. You're divine. You are a child of God. You are a creator. So start practicing creating your own life, creating a life aligned with the Creator, and kicking anybody else out who gets in the way.